Hey everybody, welcome to Echo Base. I started the video recording and didn't tell Lou. So Lou, I'll let you take it from
I was
here.
on top of it.
Oh good. Okay, well there you go then.
Premature the other day when I didn't hit the record button until after we started going, but I got it this time, so we're all set.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're let's see, Echo Base number 243, and we got a lot to talk about tonight.
No,
a bit. Yeah, so let's get right into the news here. We have all kinds of Star Wars news this week from the Disney investors meeting or investors call they had the other day.
We do have to give a little bit of a light spoiler warning. Just because I know some of our audience is sensitive.
Yeah, not the episode for you.
True. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't like spoilers and don't want to know what's coming up, then maybe wait till the next episode or
and we will be we will be discussing the events of season 2 of The Mandalorian in context with a couple of these things. We won't cover this weekend's episode, so not episode 7. If you're still catching up, that's fine. But season 2 episodes 1 through 6, we may be mentioning some things that get revealed. And then we'll probably do some light speculation throughout on some of this stuff, though the heavier speculation we're actually going to save for upcoming episodes of The Outer Rim.
Yeah, we're going to unpack each one of these items in a future episode of The Outer Rim to really kind of delve into it, what we feel, how we think what's going to happen, that kind of stuff. This will be just basically our news and quick commentary on all the bullet points. So where to start?
This was a convention. This was celebration. Multiple panels all packed into what, a 10-minute presentation. I mean, it
totally was.
True.
I had to take a breather after the whole thing got done.
But also, I gotta say, I'm not a Kathleen Kennedy hater. I think she does just fine running the company. There have been some mistakes. That's not surprising. Anybody could have made the mistakes they made. And I don't think everything falls on one person there either. So I actually appreciate Kathleen Kennedy and you can call me out on that offline if you want. Hop into Discord. Let us know what you think on that. But her presentation, this whole Disney thing that was like 4 hours long, you could tell that there are some people who are very much presenters and some people who are very much corporate officers who just are not comfortable in front of a screen. And I think Kathleen Kennedy is good when she's able to go off script a little bit, but when she's reading a teleprompter, that is not her comfort zone. And it showed. No. All due respect.
Well, and think about the audience too. This wasn't designed for us, right? It's an investor call, right? And it did, I'll tell you right now, it did exactly what it was designed to do, because the stock spiked higher than it did before it crashed back in March. Yeah. So, from that sort of standpoint, I have to give it a little bit of credit because it wasn't designed as a convention presentation. I think they knew full well that we would all be watching it, but at the end of the day,
and then we would all be jealous about the fact that we didn't get to see half of the preview content, and then we're all going to go buy one Disney stock so that next year.
That's right.
That's what I'm going to do.
Right. You'll get access to all that stuff. That was the thing. I think, this call is about money,
right,
for Disney, right? This is not about showing us what's coming up. We get the benefit of it because, hey, for them to, woo more investors and show their investors that, hey, the stock is, going to be going up. We have confidence in the company going forward. They're showing us all the good stuff they got going forward, and how much depth they have.
Yeah, it's right there in the name, investors call.
I mean, we've seen more depth in this call than I think we've had in the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh yeah, this was so deep you had to wear boots.
Well, it's huge. I mean, from that standpoint, it's huge because their stock completely tanked in March. This is a company that 30 years ago, their entire, I would say 95% of their revenue was park based. If the park shut down in the 80s, Disney's gone. That's certainly changed now, but there's no denying that they are taking an ongoing massive hit with Disneyland closed, with Disney World functioning at just a severely reduced capacity, theaters being closed. You got movies out there like Black Widow that are still on the shelf and not bringing in the millions that they were counting on. So a call like this, I have to wonder whether they did, the amount that we saw here and the sort of polish on the presentation and the public facing nature of it was designed, obviously to hit more than that, to build that confidence in the brand that, hey, look, we may be bleeding in a lot of areas, but it's not in the streaming market.
Mm-hmm. So one of the Star Wars specific things that we could probably start with, because it's quick and it's easy and it's not like the content based stuff that we all care about. So just to throw this out, we got the name Stagecraft, which is, I guess, what they're calling the technology that they were referring to as the volume. We got confirmation that in season 2 of Mandalorian, they had a larger volume set. The virtual 360 degree set is what we're referring to. And so there's a larger one for that. And they've got new sets in, what was it, LA, London, and Australia, I think. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, they've committed to that.
Yeah,
And
we
it's
expected
an awesome
that
technology.
But I didn't know that they already had these other sets built already and that they were going, that they were already that far ahead on it. But that's great.
I want that screen as like to just watch the episode of The Mandalorian on.
Right.
I want to be enveloped in it.
I mean, screw VR, right? Just get one of those.
Yeah.
And, set up a little bedroom area within it. And then like just a little tent, with.
What was that cost?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that cost? Like $1,200 bucks? Like
not that much.
Yeah.
Make that work.
Walmart,
yeah. I think it'd be great.
Just put a yurt out in the backyard and have it out there.
Yeah.
Well, let's start unpacking each one of these things as we go through here, because we don't have all the time in our world tonight, but let's go through them. So the first two things were spin-off series, series from The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. We have news about Ahsoka getting her own spin-off series, and something they're calling the the Rangers of the New Republic. And they're calling them both. Well, it's hard to say. So on StarWars.com, they did call the Ahsoka series a limited series.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. I'll have to update my notes.
They didn't say the same thing about Rangers of the New Republic, but there was a quote from Kathleen Kennedy that said, these will culminate in a climactic story event. So that kind of tells me that these are both going to be limited series. I mean, am I wrong?
So it could just be, a non-limited series is technically limited, right? I mean, Lost was limited to 6 seasons.
Well,
so depending on
eventually they all are,
right?
But
so it could still,
everything comes to an end,
right? So it could still end and then culminate in this big event. So we don't really know yet whether it's they're both going to be limited series or not. But what I found interesting about it is the fact that it's going to culminate in a big event. This has been something that had been rumored for a while, and I don't know. Some people are saying it could be on the big screen. I don't think it will be, but and other people are speculating it could be another mini series like what they did with Daredevil and Iron Fist and all that when they had the Defenders.
Right.
But what makes me happy about this, and this was not my idea. I actually this was suggested by Den of Nerds, YouTube channel, was this Filoni-verse that I'd been mentioning for a while. I like the idea that kind of like with the MCU and with the DC universe on television and all that, we've got this overlap where we have multiple series that intertwine with one another. And the Netflix Marvel stuff is another good example of that. I like that. So I think that's great news.
Yeah,
that was the big takeaway for me, is that, all of these things, they're going to branch out, but then they're also going to coalesce and come back.
Yeah.
And I like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think, other than some of the Defenders project, if I've seen something that was like this, where you have multiple series converging into one sort of story. I think it's awesome. I mean, whether they're stealing it or not, I think it's a great idea, and I think it'll get fans really invested in watching both shows.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, you're essentially making it symbiotic. You're having some occasional crossovers while you're still having a show that focuses on one person or a specific group of people. And that is the kind of stuff that really it builds a franchise. And hey, we already have a franchise. We've had a franchise for a long time, but now this is really forging a completely new territory. And they've shown very clearly a proof of concept with The Mandalorian, with what they've done with it, that yes, people are going to flock to Disney Plus. They're going to watch the crap out of this. They're going to talk about it. They want to expand everything that has to do about it. And, we're going to see a next step of this starting up next month with WandaVision. So that's going to launch the MCU side of this. And I think that, that's obviously going to draw even more people. And this stuff works. And this was going to happen regardless of the pandemic. The stuff that we heard last week in this investors call is probably amped up a little bit because of that. But there were some of these things that had been rumored for a while. Yeah, I think it's good. I don't see a downside to this at all. I have heard a couple of people say the thing that they've said a couple years ago, that, oh my gosh, we're going to have oversaturation of Star Wars.
Well, you don't have to watch it all.
Yeah,
it's true.
They've got your money either way each month.
And the thing is that
topic, that comment.
Yeah. Plus the thing is, most of it is not, at least from what it seems, if there is any overlap, it's going to be very small overlap. So you're going to have, a series, that series ends, then you're going to have another series, and it's just going to go back to back. Yeah, sure, they're going to throw a movie in there, which is going to go on at the same time as a series, but chances are those are also going to be very different things.
Right.
The movie is going to be in one time period, and the series that are going on are going to be in another time period.
What I hope they're building to is a situation where you look at the calendar and there is always a next Star Wars show or a movie on the horizon. And I think that sort of ecosystem versus the MCU model of cramming 3 to 4 movies in a calendar year, I think as a fan, that excites me that much more.
And back to what you said,
the stakes are different.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that they want us to always have something on the radar for us to focus on. And to back to what Lou said about oversaturation, I think I can see it in the theater. But on television, who cares? Just keep bringing it.
Well, I mean, you could run into the same situation we had with, Star Trek years ago, when they were getting to the point where they didn't really have anything new coming out, new ideas. I mean, we got into Voyager, and that didn't have as good reception as Deep Space Nine did. And Enterprise came out, and that was even worse. And then at some point they shut it down and said, we're taking a break. But
so the difference is that those didn't, and we'll get back to the news here in a second too, because like you said, we do have a lot to get through, but those didn't have an overall story arc, with DS9 maybe being an exception. Not like the stuff we're seeing now. If we use the Marvel stuff that Netflix did as an example, they had some of those running concurrently, I think. Not a lot of overlap, but a little bit, or if not, at least like very consecutively. And nobody complained about any sort of oversaturation or content fatigue there. So you're right to bring up Star Trek, but I think that we are in a little bit different situation this time around, which is good. So, and I looked over the article just now that you threw in the Skype chat for StarWars.com, and my interpretation of the way it's worded is that while they were very specific about Ahsoka being a limited series, or a quote event series, as they refer to in the call for a few different things, they didn't make that distinction with Rangers of the New Republic. So I'm assuming that that's not.
It was unclear. But the culmination thing, just kind of living to believe they have an end in sight, not just we're going to make seasons until we get shut down, or until we decide to shut it down.
Or it could be that culmination is to bring all of these different things together, and something could still continue past that. I mean, that's possible too.
We still have some Rangers
I'm not trying to poo-poo it. I just just wanted to bring that up.
And the other thing was, because Kathleen Kennedy talked about both of these at the same time in that presentation and didn't really separate the two. She talked about one of them starting on December 25th of next year, but she didn't indicate which one, I don't think, right?
I thought it was going to be the Ahsoka one, but I can't remember where I saw that because it's not in that article. I may have seen it somewhere else. But
we already know what's coming for Christmas next year. That's so amazing. Thank you, Santa Claus.
Spoiler, Tom.
And so these two properties themselves are being run by Favreau and Filoni. So kind of some continuity there. I think that's it's a good thing going forward. Next up, we have the Andor series, and this is something we've known about for a while now. They gave us some more actors appearing in this. Mm-hmm. So Stellan Skarsgård, Genevieve O'Reilly, Denise Gough, Kyle Soller, and Adria Arjona.
That's really good, Lou. That's as good as I would have done with those. So
I try.
Not bad.
I'm so happy we're getting
Tony
Mon
Gilroy
Mothma.
Is running it. What's that?
I'm so happy we're getting Mon Mothma. Speaking of Genevieve O'Reilly, she was outstanding in Rogue One.
It's so rare that you get somebody like recast in a known role like that and then so seamlessly pulls it off. And some of it, obviously, is the physical appearance is very similar, but then she has that same presence as the original actress for Mon Mothma did. And so it's nice to see her back.
Yeah. So this is one of the few things, or I shouldn't say a few things, one of the things we got a public sizzle reel for. Nothing as far as shooting goes, because I think all the stuff they showed that was live action was from Rogue One.
It took me a second to realize that because they had the U-wing sweep into Masasi base, and I was like, oh, snap. And then I realized it's Rogue One.
Yeah.
Now, it began production 2 weeks ago.
After the
so it is shooting. Sure. It is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So she did confirm
At the very
that.
end, they did show some concept art stuff, I think. They showed Andor in a broken canopy cockpit of some sort of
it looked like an A-wing.
A few things, yeah. So that looks pretty. I mean, that they're going forward and this is under production. This is awesome. So,
I will say, Diego Luna alongside, why am I
Alan
blanking
Tudyk?
on his name? Poe. Oh. No, Alan Tudyk. I sincerely hope K2
Oscar
makes
Isaac?
an appearance in this. But Oscar Isaac, the two of them, two of my favorites in terms of actors and how they played their roles in all of the new material. So to get Diego Luna back in that role is really awesome. And I think it's going to be in an awesome time, story-wise. I think it'll be really cool. We'll talk about that more on Outer Rim, I'm sure. But we're going to get to see a cool.
Yeah, the one actor.
No, they did announce K2SO with Alan Tudyk in this back when we first heard about this show a while ago.
So I'm trying to find confirmation of that because Alan Tudyk was not mentioned in the investors call. But I had thought that was official somewhere.
I thought so too.
It would make sense.
It was announced back when they announced Andor.
Yeah, and I thought even Alan Tudyk had mentioned it in an interview or something somewhere. I don't know. If any of the listeners out there, if you've got a link you can send us to a specific source where it was mentioned, please do. I'm trying to compile a document with citations for all the stuff we know and then all the stuff that's speculated. And that way we've got something. Maybe we'll even, post it to the website or in Discord or something like that for people to reference. But
sure.
Yeah, if anybody has citations on that.
So we get more confirmation about the Kenobi series. Or actually, was this the first official confirmation of the Kenobi series?
No, it was announced at Celebration by Kathleen Kennedy and Ewan McGregor was there and said a little thing. So, that it's been officially confirmed that it's returning. But we got confirmation that the title is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everybody's been calling it Kenobi. Much like Andor is just Andor, not Cassian Andor. But this one apparently is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we got confirmation that Hayden Christensen's returning as Darth Vader. That was the big news here.
This seemed to draw a whole bunch of reactions from people.
Yeah, people are like really hyped. I mean, it's
sure losing their mind over this.
Yeah, it's cool that he's coming back. But he's also he's Vader. He's not coming back as Anakin.
Right.
Well,
it could be he could appear in flashbacks and you get some new Anakin material that way.
Yeah, I suppose they could. I don't know. I mean, I would if the thing is if he's just coming back as Vader, I'm not. I mean, it's fine. It's great. I mean, I have nothing against the actor. He's
I'm glad to see him again. Honestly,
yeah.
I think he's underrated.
But I don't know. I mean, truly, people were like crying.
Yeah,
and
it was reaction videos. People were just crying over this, right?
Yeah, and it's awesome that people are that big of a fan of his. That's terrific. I just. Crying seems a little excessive.
So I think part of it stems from
enjoy it.
I think part of it stems from Hayden's own comments publicly about his feelings in the wake of the prequels and sort of in that immediate reception several years afterward. I mean, he went to ground. He didn't appear at any conventions. True. I don't think he appeared at anything until Celebration 2019.
Yeah, and he didn't do any movies for a while either.
No way he did.
It's been like 2.
He did.
Not for a while.
Yeah, I know of 2. I thought there was a 3rd. You're right.
I think it had a serious effect, and I think he took to heart the criticism and the vitriol that came out of those movies, and in some cases, really unfairly so.
Oh,
and to
definitely,
see him get another shot at the role and have that sort of vote of confidence for him, and quite frankly, have him willing to do it. I think that was part of it too, because he could have easily said, you know what, this all left a bad taste in my mouth. You guys find somebody else.
And he would have been justified.
That chapter of my. Oh, totally.
Yeah, no, I think that, and I've said this when we've gone back and analyzed the prequels and stuff. I think that there were so many moments in the prequels where Hayden Christensen gave such a good performance. That kind of offsets the ones where the performance was kind of so-so. And Natalie Portman gave some so-so performances in the trilogy. And I think that, and we all know that Natalie Portman is a great actress. So I think that really speaks to the responsibility that falls on the director's shoulders, not the actors. And Hayden Christensen had moments that he nailed it. And I think that between that and the other things I've seen him in, he's a good actor. People really underrate him. And I'm glad to see him come back. And I think to your point about kind of his validation for his work before, I think this also, one of the reasons that people are so excited about this is it gives validation to the people who grew up with the prequels and loved the prequels, but had to deal with all of the prequel hate from older generation haters. And I think that, people have been saying ever since Disney bought out Star Wars and then what happened with the sequel trilogy, they want validation for the prequels because the prequel content they felt was kind of ignored in the sequel trilogy. And honestly, I understand why, because the storyline's moving forward. You reference what just came before it. You don't have to go all the way back necessarily. But this is something that really goes back to validate that connection from the prequels. And I think that's great. I do want to point out that Kathleen Kennedy, I think, referred to him as Vader. I think she said Hayden Christensen will be returning as Vader, not as Anakin. And then
I think
so. A whole other discussion.
Right. And she had one sentence. She said, this will be the rematch of the century. And I don't know if she just meant that, it's the cast returning together or if there's actually going to be a rematch, because now that's like, are we going to see Obi-Wan and Vader fight again? And then, there's that line in A New Hope that kind of refers back to the last time they met. So
Yeah. I was questioning that myself, and I can't wait to dive into this one more in detail when we get to do this in
Outer Rim.
In Outer Rim.
Tim, what were you saying?
Yeah, I'm just saying that, like, I kind of hope not, because it's, not that obviously they can't change something that was our assumption or impression, because that's totally fair for them to be able to do that. But it really, like, there definitely seemed to be, again, I guess it was our assumption, but so much around this was the fact that Vader and Obi-Wan hadn't seen each other since, Anakin got arms and legs hacked off.
Right.
So I don't know. It just,
that was
really
our assumption,
odd.
That was the last time they saw each other. We don't know that, and maybe they can rewrite that with the series.
It's going to debut with a quietly re-edited A New Hope that'll just have completely new dialogue.
When 2 times ago we last met,
how did you guys
I was but the learner. Yeah.
Right. So it'd be interesting to see what they do with this, and I can't wait to dive into this more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certainly, I mean, they can do it well. And I'm not opposed to it. It just seems strange because that's kind of what we thought we knew for such a long period of time. And I'm sure that it's going to, if they do something like that, I'm sure there's going to be a heck of a lot of backlash from, certain corners of the fandom who are just so pure and set in their ways on things, and they're not willing to realize, hey, let's just enjoy the ride. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and hopefully, hopefully we are, as a group, we are kinder to Hayden this time around if there's something we don't like. But also, he's also more mature and can probably handle things better too. So I mean, it's tough to get that kind of criticism when you're that age.
I don't think it's gonna.
Anybody would have had a hard time.
I mean,
with
the prequels were a while ago. Like 20 years ago now. But exactly. Hayden's grown up quite a bit. But I think if there's any backlash, it's going to come back either on Kathleen Kennedy because, of course, or Deborah Chow, who I hope it doesn't come back on because I think she's proven herself in The Mandalorian. I think she's done things before The Mandalorian. I say she's proven herself in The Mandalorian because I'm not familiar with any of her other work, but she did a good job there. I hope that if people just don't accept what's in the Kenobi series, they don't start finding targets for their aggression. I'm sure they will, but I'm hoping it's just
they will.
Normal internet nonsense and not the level of Star Wars fandom vitriol that, and I say fandom with like lowercase letters because I don't think haters really deserve to be at the forefront of that.
And Eric, you mentioned Deborah Chow, and that's one thing that's kind of cool about this being a limited series. She's directing the entire series,
which is nice.
So like continuity across the whole series. Yep. What's up next here? Oh, the Bad Batch. So the animated stuff is coming back. These were the altered clones that were in the extra season we got of
these were the video game characters. Yeah, the Team Fortress 2 guys. You got the Brute, you got the Sniper, you got the Pyro, you've got the Scout, you've got the Medic. Or am I thinking wrong franchise?
I think that sizzle reel.
Pretty much every franchise.
Yeah.
Sizzle reel. I know there are a lot of folks out there that sort of rolled their eyes and shrugged when it was announced that they would get a spinoff. But I think that little teaser trailer looked great. It looks like the animation from the Clone Wars has been given a big boost. It looks clean. It looks fun, exciting.
Yeah, I think exciting is a good way to describe it. It's cheesy as that sounds. It looked really intense. It looked good. And I love that we got to see Fennec Shand in that from The Mandalorian. The Ming-Na Wen's character is apparently in the Bad Batch. And we also see Grand Moff Tarkin, or maybe Moff Tarkin, or Senator Tarkin, or whatever he was at the time. I'd have to check the timeline.
We're pretty sure his last name will still be Tarkin.
Probably. We don't know.
Somebody can find an article confirming that.
Maybe he gets married, he changes it, he divorces later, he goes back to Tarkin. We don't know.
True. You bring up a very valid point there.
It could happen. But so it's nice because we are already just in that teaser getting to see some other things kind of blend into that have consequence in the greater Star Wars universe. So
you saw a lot of familiar stuff that that I can't wait to get into in Outer Rim, but there's a lot of old muscle memory there in terms of the visuals and some of the locations and characters that we get to see. So that was exciting that there'll be some connective tissue.
And
do
we'll
we know
get
when
to
this
see
debuts?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
No, they didn't say anything about a timeline. I will say that. Go ahead.
I was just on the Star Wars site. They do say that the era of the show is post Clone Wars,
right? And
they're taking on mercenary missions now, so a little bit different than what they were in the
kind of the A team for Star Wars, maybe. But that's good though, because I think
the music.
I was pretty vocal. Yeah, they need a van. I was pretty vocal about not liking the Clone Wars episodes with them in it, just because I felt like it was very kind of cookie cutter. Cardboard stereotype. Caricatures rather than characters, really. But this gives them an opportunity to flesh those characters out a little bit. And so it's a good opportunity. I look forward to it. I'm optimistic about it. Haven't been thrilled with what I've seen so far. However, honestly, if you go back to the first season of Clone Wars, the first season of Rebels, the first season of Resistance, I think the first season of The Mandalorian was not as strong as the second season of The Mandalorian. A lot of the stuff that we get from Filoni and company, it's a slow grind at first, and then it builds, and then it gets really good.
Yeah.
And I knew that going into those episodes. Once I heard that they're doing a spinoff, I'm like, okay, well, it's not what I would have chosen, but now it gives them an opportunity to take something I wasn't all that excited about and probably build it into something I'm really going to enjoy.
And to be fair, the episodes that they appeared in, while they had been changed a bit from their original concept, those episodes had largely been recorded, had been shot. What we saw on screen had been conceived several years ago. This wasn't Filoni, just creating from scratch and saying, I want these episodes in, let's build them like this in 2019. So, it's a vestige of what Clone Wars was. I also think we as a fandom need to just accept that not every show is going to be The Mandalorian. It's not all going to be cinematic in scope. It's not all going to have these sweeping effects and connectivity and huge meaning for the rest of the galaxy. Sometimes you're going to get a show like The Mandalorian, but other times you're going to get a show like Resistance or like the goofier episodes of Clone Wars. And it's okay. I don't want everything to be cut from the same cloth as a fan. I want to be able to sit there and have lower stakes watching a show where I don't have to worry about getting online and looking at all the connections and what I may or may not have missed. Just good, dumb Star Wars fun. And if that show delivers that, I'll be happy. Yeah,
not every Star Wars piece of content has to hit every single fan. It's okay to like some things, not like other things. And I wasn't a big fan of Resistance, but I know a lot of people who had kids who loved it. That was the target demographic all along. That's great. Like, that's a win. It doesn't have to be something that I'm over the moon about. And I think that we all need to take that approach.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I worry in terms of fan reception, because I think from my vantage point and the narrow view that I have into fandom, folks seem to be, for whatever reason, trained or conditioned to expect the Mandalorian, not just the Mandalorian, but like episodes like where Ahsoka comes in, that's their expectation for every show. These big sweeping moments where massive events happen and whatnot. That's why I think you heard in the Clone Wars reboot here complaints about filler episodes and whatnot. That's why you've heard the same thing in the Mandalorian. And some of that criticism I think is fair. But I think there's a danger there that, when they've made efforts to make everything so cinematic and build expectations so high that we lose a sense of, hey, Star Wars is a lot of different things. And that's not always, the theater experience and the sort of sweeping cinematic story.
Well, and in television, not everything has to be a cinematic theater experience anyway. It gives you, we complain about, so much story crammed into 2 hours, and the fact that television gives you a chance to expand that and have those more intimate character moments. You don't get to then complain when you get the intimate character moments.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you can't have it both ways.
From that. Yeah, and Rebels suffered from that. Case in point, I mean, that was a great show top to bottom, but as it moved into this more significant story arc and sort of carrying Kanan and Ezra through to their conclusion and building Thrawn's story, folks, that's where I first started to see this complaint about filler episodes and I don't like these goofball episodes that seem to be off the beaten path from what I want the story to be and how I want it to progress. And I don't know that there's any changing it at this point, but that's what I worry about for a show like Bad Batch, that mentality is going to have people turn their nose up at it, when in reality, it is good Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, I think because it's new characters that don't necessarily tie in with a lot of other stuff, I think maybe they'll be a little bit more forgiving about the fact that it doesn't. I mean, with the Mandalorian, and we get Boba Fett, and we get Ahsoka, and we get, et cetera, et cetera. Now we're starting to set that bar higher and higher, which is something we can discuss later about, are they kind of shooting themselves in the foot about expectations? but we don't have a lot of expectations yet for the Bad Batch, so maybe people will be okay with it. Mediocre Modeler in the chat room said, so on board for the Bad Batch. Hopefully they won't have the kid vibe like they had with the other animated shows, and I loved those shows, he says. I don't think the Bad Batch is going to have that. I don't think it's going to be like Resistance. I think it's going to really be a continuation of the Clone Wars as far as the tone.
I agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
And while the Clone Wars isn't as kid centric as Rebels was, it's still less so than, say the Mandalorian, right? I think that's what we're going to have to see is that, you mentioned it before, Eric, that all these things are going to be over across different types of genres. Even though it's all Star Wars, we're going to have a smattering of everything from real high end, adult stuff that we're going to watch down to, kid friendly stuff.
Right.
And I think that's what makes Star Wars so much fun, because there's that thing across all these different age groups.
Yeah. And I think Star Wars still, this is the last comment I'll make because I know we have to move on, but Star Wars suffers right now from what Marvel and the MCU does not. I've never felt, I grew up a Marvel fan, but I've never felt compelled to watch every single piece of, either every single movie that comes out, every single TV show, more importantly, that comes out. I've never seen S.H.I.E.L.D., never felt really compelled to. Star Wars, for whatever reason, doesn't have that.
Right.
And I should say I'm okay as a Marvel fan. I am perfectly happy sitting here only consuming the movies. Star Wars doesn't have that. There's almost this drive and this push and this expectation that you have to see everything and you have to like everything. And I hope with the expansion of the universe like this, folks realize it's okay. You don't have to like everything. And that doesn't make you a bad fan, and it shouldn't diminish your love for other properties within the universe.
Tom, you pointed out that we don't, we are limited on time. I know you have a hard out here in a few minutes. Looking over the rest of the show notes, is there another topic that you want to hit first, and then we can hit the others after you leave? We've got the Acolyte, Lando, Rogue Squadron.
What about Rogue Squadron? That one got my blood pumping.
Mine too, in two different directions. But
okay.
But Lou, what's up with Rogue Squadron?
Well,
Rogue Squadron, dangerous.
It does, yeah. Rogue Squadron. Patty Jenkins is be directing this, and she put a great little. It's not a sizzle reel, but a great little video she posted about this series, and it kind of goes into some serious stuff about her father, who was a fighter pilot, and died while serving. And she talks about that, how she always wanted to make a fighter pilot movie and never had the right, story or the right timing for it. And the whole thing is, she started out she was rollerblading, I think, in a parking lot somewhere, and gets back of a car, and it's just very, very casual, off the cuff, doing this discussion, and she's changing, she's talking, and then she walks away towards an X-wing on the apron of an airport, putting on her Rebel jumpsuit. I'm like, oh my God, she is in this. She's all.
That was nice to see.
It was, and
really
that makes
cool.
you feel good, because she is so invested in this herself. Because I think this is the one topic that, out of all these things, like you mentioned, get your blood going, Eric, and Tom wants stuff like this before he has to got the call. We've been talking about a Rogue One type thing for a long
Rogue
time.
Squadron.
Amongst ourselves, amongst ourselves, and this is just I was kind of bummed it's a movie and not
that
a
was
series,
my
though.
thing. That's why this is bittersweet for me. I want a series. I want it to be Battlestar Galactica reboot, but Star Wars, and instead we're getting a movie.
We could get more. We don't need to think that narrowly. They could make $1 billion off this movie, and it launches
that is a good point.
Series.
That's you know what, Tom?
true.
Yeah, you win. Yep. That's actually a really good point.
The thing that got me excited is as a kid growing up with Star Wars in the 90s, the Rogue Squadron books were very near and dear to my heart. And I think I try to say this objectively, but I think of all the EU books out there, series wise, X-Wing still holds a lot of traction as probably one of the most beloved, the most well regarded. And I know they're not going to draw. They're not recreating the books of the video game, right, in this movie, but I loved seeing her interaction with Michael Stackpole, who wrote several of the books and a number of the graphic novels. He clearly was excited about the announcement, tweeted
I didn't
about
hear,
it. She
bring us up to
responded.
speed on that, because I try to avoid Twitter and Facebook and all those, cesspools of evil.
Full disclosure, I don't know. I don't have the tweet handy, but he basically tweeted, "Hey, this is really exciting to see. It's amazing that they're doing this."
Awesome.
She quote tweeted him and responded directly to him and said, "Your books were a true inspiration, and they're amazing. We hope we do them justice." And having that kind of mentality towards it, and she was doing that throughout the night after the announcement. She was responding to folks. I'm sure if Aaron Alston were still alive, one of the other authors of that series, she would have responded, very nicely to him. Her interesting factoid: her dad, she mentions in that video, being an Air Force pilot, he was a Silver Star recipient in the Vietnam War. This was a combat pilot. He was an F4 pilot. Yeah, Silver Star's second to the right up underneath the Medal of Honor. So this was a true hero. He got that, and then ultimately passed away at the age of 31 when she was 7 in a training accident, dogfighting accident. So in any event, to hear that sort of inspiration behind the story, she's a great director anyhow, but she has a passion for doing this right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Her taking that weight, that emotional and life weight into this movie, I think is going to have more of an impact than, hey, let me give a good Star Wars movie to the fandom. Right. And I think we should all be really excited about that.
Yeah. I have to say that when I heard Patty Jenkins was going to do it, it made me happy in the sense that she's a good writer. She's a good director. She knows how to deal with character development, and she knows how to deal with action scenes. The Wonder Woman movie arguably was the best of any of the DC films. And I was happy about that. And then I saw that video she posted to Twitter, and I'm like, wow, this is something she's passionate about, both from just the concept of fighter pilots, and apparently she's a Star Wars fan, and I didn't know that. And the blending of those two, and then what you're saying about the conversation with Stackpole, I mean, apparently she's read the books. That really makes me feel like this is in the right hands.
Yeah. Now, I have heard, and I don't remember where I heard it from, that the story is not going to be based on
right, and that's fine.
Correct.
So there's still going to be some inspiration, which I think is great. And actually, even Stackpole had joked on his Twitter account that he's like, "Hey, it's amazing that when something." That when a movie gets promoted that is loosely associated with books that you wrote, how many more followers you get? Because apparently his number of followers on Twitter skyrocketed.
That's good.
He's about to get a little more hefty royalties check.
Hopefully.
In the very near future.
If you guys out there have not read the X-Wing books, there were 4 by Stackpole, 4 by Aaron Alston, who, as Tom said, sadly passed away. And then I think another one by Stackpole, or was it by Alston? There was a 9th book that came out later. There are 2 quadrilogies, basically.
I thought the last one was by Stackpole, I thought.
Definitely worth reading. Stackpole is an incredible author. He was actually my first interview. I've got a lot of respect for him. And I think
just a nice guy.
He really is. Yeah. And he's actually got some content about how to be a better writer. So did Alston. He had a book that was, I think, published posthumously. Follow him on Twitter. Absolutely. Full endorsement here, for real. So I think it's okay that it's not based on the stuff from Legends. I mean, we've already had some continuity changes of what happened right after Return of the Jedi, which is where the Rogue Squadron books are based. So inevitably there have to be some changes. If they can bring back some of those characters, that'll be great. But again, we'll talk about that more on the Outer Rim when we tear that apart. David in the chat room clarified the first 4 were Stackpole, the next 3 were Alston, then 1 was Stackpole, and then the final one was Alston. I thought one of the standalones afterwards was one, but then I thought it was the other, and that would explain why. There was one of each. So there was X-Wing, Rogue Squadron, X-Wing,
my favorite
Wraith Squadron, and then there were 2 more books after that. So worth going out of your way to read, even if you're not interested in the Legend stuff. Just consider it like an alternate reality sort of thing and read them. They're really good.
Yeah. And my favorite Star Wars book of all time, I, Jedi, led into that. And
right.
it's that was fantastic. And hey, you know what? If Patty Jenkins brings
Oh
Corran
my
Horn
gosh.
back, holy crap!
He is one of my he and Thrawn are probably my two favorite characters
anointed.
in all of Star Wars.
She would be anointed
yes.
at that point, I think, at least.
I would bear her children.
Yeah, just to bring say just to bring him into the current canon would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
So,
That's a character I really miss. All right, what's up next?
Okay, we'll go back a little bit here in notes. We'll go to the Acolyte. This one, I'm not sure what to think about this because I don't have as much thoughts on this yet because it's in an area that we haven't been into yet. This is set during the final days of the High Republic, which is 100 years before the Battle of Yavin, right? I think it goes from 300 BBY to 100 BBY. Focusing on the dark side, it's themed as a mystery / thriller. They could go anywhere with this. So, I mean, I'm kind of interested, but I'm also, I don't know what to think. So, I guess that's good.
Heavily intrigued.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But think about it. We've never had a bad guy focused thing.
Mm-hmm.
No, we haven't. And I mean, that's one more thing that makes me really intrigued by this. Of course, it kind of has us thinking, I mean, Acolyte and Inquisitor are two different things, but you're almost kind of thinking, okay, this is someone who is probably, they're a dark side Force user. They're not Sith. What's this whole relationship? What are they doing? What's their whole purpose? And doing a mystery spin on it, I'm totally in.
When you look at a story, it's always about things always get complicated when you look at what the villain is doing. And with the Sith, they've always been the puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes. So any glimpse we get into that, I think is going to be really compelling storytelling. And I think it's also possibly going to set the stage for what we saw with Plagueis, Palpatine, and moving on forward from there. Because 100 years, we've talked about this before, it's not that long. Like, it's kind of long, but it's only three generations of human lifetime. That's definitely a short enough time that whatever the Sith is doing there can definitely have some direct implications for what we see in the prequels. And I think that that's really interesting. Now, before we talk about this on Outer Rim, you guys have to read the first 8 chapters that got published to StarWars.com, I think it was, from the first High Republic book. So that we have some context going into the conversation.
I got to check that out.
I haven't done that yet.
I started it.
That's Charles Soule's book.
Yeah.
And when's that book coming out, by the way?
January 6th.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Soon.
So pretty quick.
Got to hurry up with Ready Player 2.
Yeah.
And now this is being done by Leslie Headland.
Right.
Now, I don't know much about her. She did the Russian Doll series, I guess, which I've heard about, but I don't know anything about it.
I haven't watched it. Very well
Very
received.
popular, yeah. And a lot of critical acclaim. I have not seen it, but the sheer amount of critical and fan acclaim for it makes me confident that this is probably a good choice. And that she can handle that level of writing. My understanding is that Russian Doll was complex, at least from a character development standpoint, which I think that's a really good sign.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
I'll have to check out Russian Doll too, I guess, now, because it's kind of homework, right?
That's what I'm saying, yeah, exactly, yeah. We have the Lando series that we've been announced. This is an event series, they're calling it. So I
predicted this over a year ago. Just saying. I mean, it kind of fell off the radar, but
is your arm okay? You're patting yourself on the back pretty hard there.
I am right there with that Boba Fett spinoff and the appearance of Ezra and Thrawn. Yeah, I'm right on it. Let me tell you.
So let's see here. What do we know about this series so far?
Nothing.
I would love it to be centered around the comic book story that they did for Lando, which was fantastic.
I was going to say around Lando.
That's a great idea.
Yes, and it is.
No, that was a good story, though.
Did Sewell write that as well?
I don't remember who wrote that.
I don't recall either. It was a good story. Like I don't imagine that's not really something they've ever done, right? Like to do adaptations of stuff that's already been published. But if they did, that would be a really good story for them to cover.
So yeah.
Yeah.
And nothing to say they can't either. I mean, they're pulling on all kinds of sources to get stuff out. You know, we've seen them pull things out of, you know, legends and so forth, bring it forward into canon. So yeah,
Billy D is getting up there in age though, and I love Donald Glover. I would love to see him come back. So I'm kind of hoping they do something that's, I really want to see Donald Glover in this, and he's not confirmed. Apparently, I assume he's in talks for it, but really the only thing we have confirmed is that Justin Simeon, best known for Dear White People, another series with vast critical acclaim. He's the one developing the story. There was a sizzle reel shown to investors that was meant to set the tone and style of the series. So it was probably almost more of just a compilation of concept art. But, and of course it wasn't made available to the public, but we know very, very little about this. But again, from what I know of it, it sounds like it's in good hands. I think Justin Simeon is probably going to do really well with it. And I really hope they get Donald Glover.
Be nice. Although I think if they did, they would probably have something to talk about, you know, that would have come out. But
they could still be working on contracts.
Yeah, if it's not finalized, I guess I can't really announce anything, right? So let's see. A series of 10 animated short films called Visions. This kind of confuses me. It says it's an Eastern feel to it.
Yeah,
right?
but it's being done by major Japanese anime studios.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So think the Animatrix.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm looking forward to this. Like, I'm not that much into anime. I'm starting to kind of dip my toe in the pool a little bit, and I don't think I'm necessarily going to go for a full-on swim, but I don't know. I'm kind of looking forward to this. I think this could work out really well. And I think that sometimes it's nice to get anthology stuff. Just for something different.
I think so too. And you know, I mean, whether it's canonical or not, I think, you know, it can just be something enjoyable. It's done from a different perspective. You have different writers and artists that are involved in it. You know, and yeah, we really don't know. It could be a reimagining or retelling of some of the same stories, or you know, I like when sometimes when they flip a story from a different perspective. You know, I mean, we kind of saw some of that from like the certain point of view books. So little things like that, or, you know, some of those like interludes between the major scenes and movies or whatnot. So yeah, I like that kind of stuff.
I like to think, before I have to hop off real quick, that it'll be done obviously authentically, but I've really loved the Galaxy of Adventure series. It has that anime flavor to it. If you haven't watched that on YouTube, these little shorts that reimagine parts from the movies with that sort of anime flair. But if you haven't seen, so this is not official, there's a I forget what it's called, but it's an anime style TIE Fighter movie, like short film on YouTube that's available. Total anime, like traditional animation. I don't even think that there are really I don't think there's a script in it, but it's about some Star Destroyers launching some pilots against the Rebel force. And it is, if they deliver 10% of that, I'll be all in and really loving it. Yeah, it's really good. It's worth searching. Yeah. I've got to head out.
Let's check that out.
All right, Tom, have a good night.
Tom, good seeing you, buddy.
Thanks for being here, man.
Outer Rim. Bye.
So Joe in the chat room was asking, let me come back to it. Is it what if for Star Wars? Not technically,
maybe,
but we don't know whether this is going to be canon or not. It may be, it may not be. I don't know. The Forces of Destiny shorts that were on Disney Plus, I don't know whether those are supposed to be canon or not. Typically, those sort of little vignettes aren't really supposed to be.
I think those are what has been referred to as canon adjacent.
Kind of like the Lego content.
Where they basically don't. Yeah. Right. So we're basically, they don't countermand anything that is canonical, but they may not necessarily be canonical.
Right.
So,
yeah. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get an announcement closer to when it's released. But I would say right now, don't count on them necessarily being canon. But I don't think they're supposed to be what if either. I don't think that they are intentionally exploring alternate, what if Luke missed his shot on the Death Star, or what if Leia turned to the dark side?
Right,
I don't think they're aiming for that. I think they're trying to stick with canon, and it's probably going to be more along the lines of, from a certain point of view, the books. It's going to be short stories based on tertiary characters, things like that.
Interesting.
Maybe.
Cool. We have a droid story coming out. We have a new hero character being led through whatever events he's in by 3PO and R2.
Nope. Moving on. If it were BB-8 and R2-D2, maybe, but nah.
I mean, the thing is,
throw K2SO in there.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I know, obviously, the droids, they can get a lot of mileage out of. There was the old droids cartoon that ran, a few decades ago. And I remember that being reasonably entertaining, at least when I was, that age. But again, I mean, that's also the thing. Consider Star Wars is primarily for kids. And, they're certainly expanding that. There's, I think, some Star Wars things that are leaning a little bit more toward, more mature audiences, but they still got to have stuff for kids. So, yeah, have at it. It might not be. I mean, maybe we'll watch an episode or two of it and we'll say, not for us, but hey, have at it.
And that's the thing, we don't have to watch all this stuff.
That's the thing.
You can let something go if you don't
It can be for somebody other than you. Not everything Star Wars has to be about you or about me, and that's fine. And all kidding aside, I think that assuming they get a good writer, this is probably going to be a good series. It's always fun to kind of do the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern thing where you're kind of looking at the big epic events, but from the points of view of the people kind of off to the side. And in this case, the droids are often marginalized and they're kind of the underdogs, and you get to see the story through their eyes. I think that could be good. And there's apparently a specific mission that this new character is tasked with and is being guided by 3PO and R2. So I think it's going to be more focused on this new droid character. It could be really good. It's not a bad concept. I just like to joke about hating 3PO.
No, I mean, that concept has worked in other properties before too. I mean, I like that where you have, characters that aren't really part of your main crew in how they're seeing the events unfold. There was a great episode of Babylon 5 that was that way. Those two workman guys that were just kind of in and amongst other things going on, but they were privy to all kinds of great things in that episode. This could be the same kind of thing.
And we've got Star Trek Lower Decks.
So wait and see. Yeah,
it's worked before, and I think it could work here.
Okay, and then finally we have an undisclosed project from Taika
Cool.
Waititi.
Tell us all about that, Lou.
He's writing and directing it, and it's coming out in 2024. So
tell us about
it. No, that's it. It's a Star Wars movie.
Right. Right.
No, we want to hear more.
In 2024.
So what's it about?
Coming out in 2024.
Just like the basic.
It's about Star Wars. Yeah.
That's intriguing.
It is.
I'm excited about that.
Fascinating. Yeah, fascinating.
When's it set?
No.
Time period?
This is one of those announcements kind of like we had before where they say, hey, we have so-and-so doing this movie. And that's it.
That's Kathleen Kennedy really? Getting up there and saying, hey, despite all the details we gave you about things, that thing where we would just throw a director out there, we're still doing that too. Here you go.
Well,
exactly.
and the thing is that this is also not new.
Right. This was announced.
I mean, we knew that.
Right. We knew he was attached to something.
Was it officially announced?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was.
I thought it was too. I don't recall.
It's kind of the unfortunate side of it is that, okay, we've known about this for months. You couldn't have dropped another breadcrumb. I mean,
I know.
And again, I don't mean to sound ungrateful, obviously. We had just so much stuff brought to us, and it's really awesome, and that's so cool. But specifically looking at this one Taika Waititi thing, which whatever the heck it is, he could do a story about air, and
You
would
might
be awesome. But it's like, yeah, we've known about this. Just tell us a little bit
again,
more.
the investors.
We've talked about this before. That I just hate that Lucasfilm does not like. Hey, here big shiny director.
But again, this wasn't for the fans.
But we're not going to tell you what.
This was for the investors who may not have been keeping up with the news like we do.
True.
And it wasn't presented and positioned as a highlight of the presentation, which is fair. Like it got the right amount of attention based on the information they were providing. So like as a fan, it's annoying. As a consumer of media, recognizing this as an investor's call, it fit.
Mm-hmm. Now maybe Lucasfilm doesn't even know what he's doing. Maybe he's doing his own, because this is the quote from StarWars.com. It says, Taika's approach to Star Wars will be fresh, unexpected, and unique. Kennedy said his enormous talent and sense of humor will ensure that audiences are in for an unforgettable ride. So they have no idea what he's doing. They said, here, do something with Star Wars, and then let us know when it's ready.
And that may very well be it. They may have, maybe they told him, hey, here's the time period we'd love you to write in, or maybe here's a couple of characters, and just let him do his thing, which if we also heard a while ago that Kevin Feige was going to be involved in production for a film. I mean, nothing like real long engagement. That's the kind of stuff that they do over on the Marvel side that Taika Waititi did for Thor Ragnarok and is doing for Thor Love and Thunder. Same kind of thing where they're just like, hey, you know what? Here's a character we'd love you to write on. Go do whatever you want to do. Maybe here's like 2 or 3 story beats that we want you to hit anywhere in that movie, but the whole thing is entirely up to you to do.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what Feige's working with him on, because that's kind of a new thing for Star Wars, where they've been, fairly controlly about things, which I think maybe the only exception to that is kind of where Filoni is going.
Yeah.
I think The Mandalorian is something that it's very much outside that box. And now this is something they want to do with the big screen. I don't know.
My understanding was that Feige did actually come in and met, but it was more of a consulting sort of thing. My understanding is that the rumors of him being officially involved in production could still happen at some point, but that what occurred that was reported specifically was more him coming in to consult with Lucasfilm about how to do what you just described. Like, here is the best way to approach it. Here's how to approach new projects and bringing people in.
Yeah. How are you doing things so well? We're not.
Right. Right. And it's been working with, I'm loving this Filoniverse idea. And I think that is going in the right direction. And, we'll see what else we get out of it beyond that. But I don't know. The other thing, because I know we're about to wrap up here because we've also got to record Random Chatter here pretty soon. The thing that walking away from it, there were some things we didn't get. We didn't get an announcement about Boba Fett. We didn't get anything about Ezra or Thrawn, but those would be, so let's say we get Thrawn as the main villain in the Ahsoka series. That would be something we would get at a celebration, maybe at a D23. That's not going to be in an investor's call. Investors don't care about that. Well, some investors also care about that. That's outside the scope of the content that should be covered in an investor's call.
Right.
So it's not surprising. We still could see Thrawn and Ezra in the Ahsoka series. The other thing is, they said there will be 10 new Star Wars series. They announced 9. So, not including the 2 movies. 10 new Disney Plus Star Wars series. We know about 9. And so, if they wanted to do a Boba Fett spinoff, but have it be a surprise at the end of The Mandalorian season 2, we see something like a title card that says the story will be continued in Boba Fett or whatever. They might not literally do that, but if they present it as kind of a big surprise at that point, then that might be one of those things that they kept out of the investors call intentionally, kind of like they didn't reveal Baby Yoda at whatever investors call they did back before season 1 came out. You know, they do need to keep some surprises held back to give future talking points to the fans when the next time they need something to blow up big on the internet. It would not at all surprise me to find out that we are going to find out about one more thing pretty soon here. They were very specific. 10 new Marvel things, 10 new Star Wars things. We got 9.
Right.
And minus 9, that still leaves, I forget how many, but there's still something.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, good point.
I don't know that it'll be Boba Fett. Like it's becoming more of a stretch now that's what we're going to get. But there is still the 10th thing.
We shall see. Hey, one thing we forgot to mention when we were talking about Rogue Squadron, was December of 2023.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
So yeah, I mean, it's not close, but
no,
it's not.
It's really not. It's
it'll
not
be
at all.
Before you know it. So yeah.
Yeah, and presumably the Taika Waititi will be the 2025 film. We assume.
Yeah.
Seems like a fair assumption.
That schedule, as far as we know, hasn't changed.
Right.
Well, hasn't changed since COVID.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
because it changed there, but
I mean, let me tell you, if we're still dealing with COVID by 2025, the entire movie industry is it's going to be a completely different creature, not just a slightly changed creature. It's going to be extinct, and there will be some other thing. So we will be watching the movie in VR.
Very good. Well, hey, vaccines are getting rolled out starting tomorrow, so run a path towards recovery or
path to recovery. Okay,
path towards something.
Restructuring, rebuilding.
Path towards.
Don't expect to get your vaccines until probably April, though. You got a lot of people to get out of the way first: healthcare workers, elderly, etc. And it's going to take a while.
We're thinking summer.
So Lou can get his probably like 2 weeks from now, but Tim, you and I.
Wow.
I know we're going to have to wait. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Lou's already passed out. Oh, there he is. Okay, he's back.
God. Okay. Anyways, that is the investors' call from the Star Wars side of things in a nutshell. They did announce a Willow series too. Because that's Lucasfilm, so it's not with Star Wars, but Lucasfilm. And who knows what else they got cooking? I mean, like you said, Eric, there's other things they're going to drop.
Indiana Jones 5.
Or 4, as Tim likes to call it.
4.
Yeah,
it's the 4th movie.
4.5. 4. Indy wakes up.
What was that?
Yeah. I just had the strangest dream.
Hopefully more stuff happens that we're going to be excited about. But I mean, like I said earlier in a call in this podcast, we got more stuff in this 1 4-hour call than I think we got in the last 3 years worth of. I
was really surprised.
Hey, we're doing this. We're not doing that. We're doing this. Now we're not doing that now.
Yeah.
So I was very happy. I was very excited. I wasn't watching it live. Tim was. Tim did a great job streaming the stuff to Discord, not streaming, but
live blogging,
point by point, giving live blogging in our Discord server, which was fantastic. Thank you, Tim.
Certainly.
And
it was at times like challenging to keep up on, because there were a lot of things in that call that they were like rapid firing through.
Yeah.
Sometimes they were taking their time. There were other times that they were also showing, there were trailers that were sold that were being shown to the investors that weren't being shown to the general public. So like you would have this lull of 40 to 60 seconds. But then other times they're just like boom, 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 boom. And it was nuts.
Yeah.
But it was, it was fun. It was enjoyable. It was really awesome to just be getting all that news and, in one thing. I mean, all the Star Wars news, all the Marvel news, news on Pixar stuff and Disney animation, all that. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about coming up in Random Chatter. And, you know, even like what they're doing with the streaming services and you know, things that we've talked about a lot and try to like predict ourselves what it is that they're going to do. Like, hey, how are they going to handle adult content like Deadpool movies for Disney Plus and that kind of stuff? So they pretty much addressed a lot of that. So it was exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very news heavy. We're going to have a crap load of stuff now, and then we're not going to have anything to cover for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't say that. Well, Eric, why don't you take us out?
Okay. Well, first of all, to the people watching in the chat room right now, we're going to wrap up this show. We're going to be back in about 15 minutes at 9:30 to start Random Chatter. And don't miss that because, again, you know, all of this Star Wars stuff that we just had to cover, we got a lot of other stuff. We're going to talk about the Marvel stuff. And, of course, we're going to have a deeper dive on Guardians of the MCU for that. We're going to talk about Disney and Pixar stuff. It's going to be another packed show. So stick around. It's going to be coming in just a few more minutes. If you're listening to this as an audio podcast or if you're watching on YouTube, then be sure to click through for that next episode of Random Chatter. It's going to be episode, let me check, 309. So keep an eye out for that. But that is going to do it for this episode of Echo Base. There's going to be a lot more deeper dive discussions on this on the Outer Rim, our other Star Wars show on the Random Chatter Network. Once we get through The Mandalorian, we've got one more episode of The Mandalorian coming, and we will be discussing that next weekend. We'll have to figure out when exactly we're going to stream it because I think I'm working day shift that weekend, so we might be doing it either Friday night or Saturday night, but we will keep you posted. And the best place to find out when we're going live is either by subscribing in YouTube and clicking that little notification button, or by joining Discord. Go to randomchatter.com/Discord. You can join for free. We've got channels for each one of the shows on the Random Chatter Network. We would love to have you there as part of the community. There's a lot of stuff here to discuss. So head over there and, ask us questions, ask other community members questions, talk about whatever your favorite news item was out of this or out of the Random Chatter content we're about to bring to you. It's a good place to be if you're a fan of movies and Star Wars and television. So head over there, and I think that's going to do it. You can follow us on Twitter at Random Chatter or at Force Chatter, and that's it. So until next time, take care.